Oh, welcome.
I'm
Hello.
Kristen Emerson from Millville, and I'm going to totally switch gears for a minute. You briefly touched upon use of facility forms, and I have a huge need to have a district calendar that everybody puts everything on. And the reason why, for me personally, is I help coordinate the variety show. We have such a small community that we can't compete with each other for events, especially if they're fundraising events. We continually have to compete with the band because they're an entity among themselves. So we have to change our dates and work around their schedule, but they don't put everything on the calendar. So we've had to change our date this year 3 times to not compete with the band. So I don't know if there's some sort of system that when you submit a facility request form and it's approved, it goes on a calendar. Somebody immediately inputs it onto a calendar. So when I go in and say, okay, here are the dates I'm looking at for our show, let's see what's already scheduled, so we know what we're competing against.
What building were you looking at? Are we looking at the auditorium?
The Millville Auditorium. But I called every school to find out what's already on your calendar, when are your proms, when are your dances. Found out proms, worked around that, because we plan in the fall and pick the date in the fall for our spring show.
We had a similar request about the fields, because it seems whoever gets there first or something, so that's good.
But it's not that I don't, it's not that I am competing for the same facility. I'm competing against people having events in additional facilities.
Okay.
So we may have something in Millville, but there was also a junior high play on the same night. And last year we competed against a fundraiser, so we lost people that would have come to our event. If we all look at the calendar before we plan, then we can all try and accommodate each other.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Buckley.
Back a long time ago, when the website first went up, there was a district-wide calendar that I think Mrs. Robinson took care of.
The calendar
And
exists.
it listed all of the events.
It exists,
so
but things don't go on.
Patty
It's not
was
up
the
to date.
point person that all the requests came to so that it could put in. So that, you know, there was enough things so you knew that MES had a talent show, the band was, the next night was having their spring jazz concert or what have you, so that, you know, we also used to run into like issues where in Millville, like the Knights of Columbus were doing something. I remember years ago, one of the big issues was selling Christmas trees. Nesca sold Christmas trees, but also I think the Knights of Columbus were doing it too, and finally they worked it out themselves, but, you know, certainly I think we should be able to, in this day and age, be able to produce a district-wide calendar that.
And it exists. I did look at it prior to planning our dates, and there are school committee meetings are on it because you set out your calendar the school year in advance, I'm sure. And then if you go to the website, there are some things scrolling on the website, but they're not on the calendar. So it takes, you'd have to go 5 different places, you have to call each school to find out the information, and then I put it on my calendar so that then I can pick the date, and then things were still scheduled after the fact, and we still competed with things.
And of course, town events you can't control too, whether it be a play or a Boy Scout or Girl Scout thing that's outside
It's more
the
the
school.
schools.
Okay.
It's the school functions, because if I'm a parent of an elementary school, I could also have a middle schooler.
Yeah.
And suppose they're at the same time. I gotta pick which event I'm gonna go to or which one I'm gonna support. And I know we're gonna have some conflicts, but if we have a calendar that everything's listed and everyone pays attention when they plan events to try and steer clear, you know, then, you know, maybe we can, with our small community, support each of the events instead of, you know, dividing.
The last MESPA meeting that we attended, Mrs. Fowler brought this up as an issue as well and mentioned that you had to actually move something because even though it was clear and you had it, somebody else scheduled something not knowing and it was just a conflict, and rather than compete, you decided to change it. And at that time we did state, Ms. Shaver-Hood said that we would work on that. And it is our desire to do that, but just please bear in mind that since that meeting we've been completely engulfed in budget. So it's not that it's not an important item, it just isn't as high a priority as the budget has been, but it is something that we will look into, and it should be very manageable within the district somewhere.
Understood, thank you. I have a question about the budget. I want to understand, when I was looking through the line items and seeing some correspondence going back and forth, is it state law that we provide transportation for students who have school choice? Not students who need to go to a different school because we can't provide the services that are required. But if you choose to send your child to a different school, do we, as a district, need to provide the transportation and pay for the transportation?
No.
So the only schools that we are required to provide transportation would be within our district, plus BVT and Norfolk Aggie?
We don't pay for BVT or North Fork Aggie, that goes to the towns, and they
Okay, I
pay
guess
for
that's
that
what I mean.
transportation.
The towns.
We pay for our students who are attending our schools. If we bus students out due to special programs,
Mhm.
then we are responsible for transportation for special programs.
Not just special needs, but
No,
special programs.
Special needs.
So
Special-
just, okay, so if I wanted to send my child to a school that offered a program that we don't offer, an art program that we didn't offer, that would be my choice, but would you be required to pay transportation?
No.
Okay,
And anytime a parent comes in and asks for school choice, we always make very clear to them, transportation is their responsibility.
okay, okay. And then I just wanted to touch on the Millville Elementary School and the Mrs. Tatro issue. I have been involved in the elementary school for 11 or 12 years. I was there for a couple of years with Mr. Campbell when my child was really young, and then for the 10 years that Mrs. Tatro has been the principal. And she and I have not always seen eye to eye. We struggled to get this Friday show up and running. It was a questionable event. You know, it was our first year doing it, and there were a lot of questions, and she runs a tight ship, and that created a little bit of conflict between the two of us, but, you know, we worked it out and we were able to be successful and move on. My issue with the whole thing is the process. To me, and I could be totally wrong, I felt like the notification was given to Mrs. Tatro, and within minutes it was posted on the website. So she was not given time to notify her staff, the families, the students. It became, you know, Facebook and email and telephone instead of her having the opportunity to make that notification herself. And that, to me, shows a lack of respect for her as a person. We are not corporate America. We are not a cold, you know, it's about the budget, it's about the money environment. We are a school environment. We're educators. We're here for the kids. And I felt like that was a really poorly way to handle that situation, given the fact that she had been there for 10 years. So she has roots in the community. She has students who are going into the 5th grade, who have been there since preschool or kindergarten, who now will have a brand new principal for their final year at Millville. You know, I just think it should have gone about a different way, where she was given a little bit more opportunity to notify everyone, and then to notify the students herself.
I will speak to that.
Okay.
She was given an opportunity.
Before it was posted?
Absolutely.
Could you tell me how
Absolutely.
much time?
I can tell you that there was ample opportunity.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Could I just ask you your first name again, please?
Kristen, with a K?
Thank you. Yep.
Clarification of something I said.
Yeah,
earlier.
sure.
I'm sorry, it's bothering me. You asked me how much MESPA makes in a year, and I believe my eyes were bigger than my pocketbook. And I don't know if it's on record or not. I apologize,
That's fine.
Blurted.
Probably quite
That's
better
we're,
Yeah.
it's more in the 20,000. I would just like.
Still, it's still sizable.
Yeah.
It's,
Fine.
You're 45, you weren't that far.
I know, it was been bothering me. I apologize,
Sorry about it.
I just didn't want it on record that
You're
we were.
still on our team.
Still, yes, okay.
Not getting cut.
Okay,
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
clarification.
Mrs. Joliker.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Joliker. For the last 4 years, I've served on the Millville Elementary School Council with Mrs. Tatro. And I also led the energy efficiency project at Millville Elementary and Power to Save campaign, and worked very closely with Mrs. Tatro over the years. My daughter is now in 5th grade and leaving the school. I've developed a deep, deep respect for Mrs. Tatro as a strong and compassionate leader over our time at Millville. She means a great deal to the kids, to the parents, to the seniors, to the community at large. I sent a letter to you school committee members last week. I don't need to reiterate everything in there. I could sit here and say Mrs. Tatro's praises for the next 40 minutes, and I won't do that. What I will say is that you are our elected representatives. And as such, you have created an opportunity for us to share how we feel, to pose questions. Like many others, I'm very upset. I'm very disturbed. My daughter won't be at Millville Elementary next year, but I know what Mrs. Tatro means to that school, and I know what she means to our community. With all due respect to Ms. Vasquez, I understand you would like for us to have faith and trust in your decision. I will tell you that I'm sorry, many of us do not. I will not ask you for your rationale. I understand you can't tell us. So let's just leave that to be a dead issue. I'm deeply disturbed by this change in leadership at a time which is so precipitous for our school system, when we are going and asking for additional funds from the town. And I will tell you, I spoke at a town meeting, and I will fight every step of the way to support an override to fund the school system. You have my 100% support on that. I believe in the importance both for our children and for our community at large to have strong schools. But I do not support the decision not to renew Mrs. Tatro's contract. I'm very disturbed. I think this is the worst possible time for a change in leadership. And I'm also deeply disturbed by the continual feedback we have when teachers say, I'm right there with you, let us know what we can do to help this issue. And then come back and say, if we speak anything about the district or about Mrs. Tatro, we'll be written up for insubordination and I can't afford to lose my job. That is really disturbing to me about the culture that seems to be developed. Again, I would say that faith and trust are built. They're not just given. It's been deeply shaken. It's been deeply shaken, our trust and our faith. I do not share the hopefulness, unfortunately, that we will get a wonderful replacement. Ms. Shaverhood has said that you'll come in and meet with us and talk about what we're looking for in a principal. We have what we're looking for. We have the leadership, the strong, compassionate leadership that we're looking for in that school. And so I would add my voice to the others and say, what we want is that decision reconsidered. Thank you.
Thank you very much.